Before my grandfather passed away, he arranged a marriage for me. He said the girl was a hostage I rescued during a mission years ago. She was a great match in every respect, not only beautiful but also the daughter of the city's wealthiest man. To fulfill my grandfather's last wish as soon as possible, my commanding officer arranged for a private jet to fly me home overnight. I arrived in my fiancée's city, weary from my travels and holding the marriage contract, only to be stopped by a security guard at the gate. Where did this beggar crawl out from? You think the Montgomery estate is a place you can just walk into? Suppressing my anger, I carefully handed him the marriage contract. Sir, this is my grandfather's last wish. Could you please inform them I'm here? He didn't even glance at it. He just tore the contract, which my grandfather had written by hand, into pieces. You must have a death wish, bringing something from a dead man to the Montgomery family. Staring at the scattered scraps of paper, I slowly pulled my phone from my pocket. Sir, the wedding is off. Can I hold a funeral instead? Chapter 1. My CO on the other end of the line immediately sensed something was wrong. Sincere, what's the situation over there? I glanced at the security guard, my voice devoid of any emotion. They destroyed my grandfather's marriage contract. My CO knew my temper well and realized this wouldn't end peacefully. He warned me at once, Sincere, you need to calm down, this is home, not the battlefield. If you take a life, not even I can protect you. His voice on the phone was urgent, but I was unmoved. Don't worry, sir. This is a personal matter. I won't drag the unit into it. If it comes to it, I'll trade my life for his. Bullshit, he roared back. You listen to me no matter what happens. The nation will never forget your service. I looked down at the peace medal on my chest, fighting back tears. Sir, if I can't even protect my own family, how can I defend our country on the battlefield? There was a pause on the other end, followed by the sound of a fist slamming on a desk. Damn it all, I'm with you on this one. Do whatever you have to do. If things go sideways, I've got your back. Hearing those words, I couldn't help but choke up. Don't worry, sir. I just want to give my grandfather a proper, honorable funeral, that's all. My CO spent a long time calming me down, and my rage gradually subsided. If the other party had shown even a shred of remorse, I might have considered letting it go. But some guard dogs just don't know when they're out of their league. What are you looking at? Keep staring and I'll gouge your eyes out, the guard threatened again, seeing that I wasn't leaving. I froze on the spot. Are all doormen for the rich this aggressive? My gaze locked onto him, my tone turning colder. My friend, I suggest you get your master out here. Otherwise, the consequences will be severe. My warning, far from reining him in, only made him more arrogant. Well, listen to you. Such big words for such a little man. Open your damn eyes and look around. This is the capital, Montgomery territory. You think you can touch me? Try it. He grew more agitated as he spoke, spittle flying from his mouth. I'd spent years on overseas missions with very little time back home. I had no idea how to deal with a low-life thug like this. His insolent attitude sent my anger soaring, a mere businessman daring to act like royalty. Pathetic. My words caused a stir among the onlookers. Damn, this kid's got balls. He's disrespecting the Montgomery family, the richest in the city. He's asking to die. This is the Montgomery estate. Even city officials need an appointment to get in. What makes him think he can just walk in? No kidding. Even the security guards here are hand-picked. I heard they make twice what a senior civil servant does. As the murmuring grew louder, the guard's expression became increasingly smug. You hear that? A worthless piece of trash like you with no power and no connections wants to see Miss Montgomery? Keep dreaming. I ignored their taunts. In fact, I almost wanted to laugh. A dog should know its place. Money can't solve everything in this world. Before I lose my temper, I suggest you open that gate. Or else my ass. Before I could finish, the guard rolled up his sleeves and lunged at me. What's this? I call you a dog, and you actually try to bite? The guard threw several punches, none of which even touched my clothes. He became infuriated. "You little bastard, I'm going to kill you today." I didn't fight back against his provocations, merely dodging his attacks. It wasn't that I was afraid of him. It was because I had spent too long on the battlefield. I either don't strike, or I strike to kill. Killing a guard dog was hardly worth jeopardizing my mission. Seeing that I refused to fight back, the guard thought I was a pushover and charged at me again. Just in the nick of time, a sharp voice roared from behind me. "Stop, Chapter 2. A tall young woman, flanked by a group of bodyguards, strode quickly toward me. "Wayne, you're the captain of security for my family. How can you just start a brawl in public? So you're Victoria Montgomery, the woman my grandfather arranged for me to marry." I studied the woman before me. I had to admit, my grandfather had good taste. She was nearly 5'7", and the crimson dress she wore perfectly hugged her flawless figure. If I had to find a flaw, it would only be the icy coldness in her eyes as she looked at me. "Miss Montgomery, I suggest you get the full story, or else what?" Victoria interrupted impatiently, raising a hand. "Where did this nobody crawl out from, daring to tell me what to do?" For a moment, I thought I had misheard. The master and the servant have the same rotten attitude? "Miss Montgomery, I hope you understand one thing. That marriage contract also had your father's signature on it. Did you think I actually want to marry you?" At my words, Victoria's expression changed instantly. "You pathetic loser, don't play these reverse psychology games with me. Do you have any idea how many men in this city are dying to marry into the Montgomery family?" I fought to control my anger and waved a dismissive hand at her. "Miss Montgomery, I don't care what other people think. To me, marrying a spoiled, ill-mannered brat like you would be worse than dying on the battlefield. As for this Montgomery family you're so proud of," I couldn't care less. The moment I finished speaking, the scene erupted. "My God, this kid is insane. He's confronting Miss Montgomery to her face? Does he have a death wish? Seriously, Miss Montgomery is a goddess to every man in the capital, and this idiot doesn't appreciate his good fortune. If it were me, I wouldn't care if I was marrying in. As long as I could get into the Montgomery family, I'd be set for life." The crowd's doubt rained down on me, but I didn't care at all. In the capital, the Montgomery family was indeed considered high society, with business interests spanning the nation. But what good was all that money? Without people like us defending the nation, it would all just end up in someone else's pocket eventually. I still remembered that massive rescue operation from 5 years ago. From receiving the order to successfully rescuing the hostages, my tactical team took less than an hour. On the flight home, the little girl from back then had clung to my hand, refusing to let go. Because my identity had to be kept secret, it was only after Mr. Montgomery insisted on taking my grandfather's phone number that she finally agreed to go home. Victoria probably had no idea that the man who had saved her life was standing right in front of her. "You little bastard, take a good look in the mirror. Do you think you're worthy of Miss Montgomery?" the guard sneered. Victoria immediately chimed in. "Exactly. If my father wasn't forcing me to marry you, I wouldn't even spare a glance for a worthless freeloader like you then." Her tone shifted, and a cold smile appeared on her face. "Now that the contract is destroyed, our engagement is officially over." I narrowed my eyes, staring at her intently. "Since you've made it so clear, Miss Montgomery, I won't insist. However, you still have to answer for destroying my grandfather's last possession. I had wanted to be a gentleman, to give both sides a way out. But this self-important heiress in front of me wasn't listening. She even seemed to think I was deliberately making things difficult. Answer for what? It was just a piece of paper. What kind of answer do you need?" I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Word by word. Since you don't think it's important, then don't blame me for using other means." Just as I turned to leave, the guard shouted after me, "Hey punk, you stop right there. You think the Montgomery estate is a place you can just come and go as you please?" I paused for a few seconds, then slowly turned my head. "What's this? Are you going to invite me to stay for dinner, Captain?" He gave me a sinister smile and whispered something in Victoria's ear. The next second, the daughter of the capital's richest man erupted in fury. "You pathetic loser, how dare you ruin my reputation?" Chapter 3. From the guard's expression, I could guess he was twisting the truth, turning black into white. Given Victoria's attitude toward me, I knew explaining would be pointless, so I didn't waste my breath. "So, how do you two want to settle this?" Wayne Miller swaggered up to me. "Weren't you acting tough just now, kid? Why are you backing down?" I smirked and pointed to the security camera above us. "Don't forget the cameras, Captain. Every word you've said has been recorded." Wayne scoffed at my words. "Kid, do you know where you are? It's just a security camera. Believe it or not, I can have that footage erased with one phone call." With that, he pulled out his phone right in front of me. "Hello, this is Captain Miller from the Montgomery estate. Erase the footage from the front gate." After hanging up, he raised an eyebrow at me mockingly. "I told you to leave, but you had to be a hard ass. Now you can't leave even if you want to. Sucks, doesn't it? From now on, keep your eyes open in the Capitol. The Montgomery estate isn't for just anyone. Got it? I've had a stubborn streak since I was a child. Otherwise, I never would have made it into a top-secret unit." Faced with the guard's taunts, I just smiled faintly and ignored him. "Don't you play deaf with me, you bastard. Say something. Weren't you so high and mighty a minute ago?" My gaze grew sharp, my eyes fixed on him. "Wayne, you're really asking for it. Do you have any idea who I am?" Hearing this, the guard raised an eyebrow and burst out laughing. "Who are you? Aren't you just some delusional social climber, a pathetic loser dreaming of marrying into wealth?" Marrying into wealth, a social climber. I never thought those two phrases would ever be used to describe me. Ignorance isn't terrifying. What's terrifying is when someone doesn't realize the catastrophic trouble they're in. "Wayne, you don't really think that just because you have the Montgomerys behind you, I can't touch you, do you?" With that, I pointed toward the grand courtyard mansion ahead. "Believe it or not, with one phone call, I can have this entire estate razed to the ground." My declaration sent a shockwave through the crowd. "This kid must be insane. Mr. Montgomery's acquisition of this mansion was specially approved by the higher-ups. Who would dare touch it?" Well, today we've seen it all. Someone actually daring to challenge the Montgomery family on their own turf in the Capitol. He's just humiliating himself. I know, right? I don't know what Mr. Montgomery was thinking. There are so many talented young men in the Capitol. Why did he pick this guy? I turned to face the crowd, a slight smile on my lips. "Ladies and gentlemen, I may not have the most pleasant personality, but I never lie. Today, not only will I walk through that gate with my head held high, but I will also hold my grandfather's funeral right here." In the Montgomery Estate, Chapter 4, hearing my words, the guard let out a dismissive scoff. "Ha, big talk is cheap. Why don't you try taking a step and let's see what happens? If you dare take one more step forward, I swear I'll break your legs in less than an hour." I had been threatened twice by the same person. This was something I couldn't have imagined even in my wildest dreams since joining the top-secret unit. Done with the pointless chatter, I took out my phone again right in front of the guard. "Hello, sir, it's Sincere Knight. I need a favor." The voice on the other end immediately turned serious. "What are you up to now, you punk?" I glanced at the man opposite me and said coldly, "Can you send my grandfather's coffin over?" On the other end, my CO pondered for a few seconds, then let out a soft sigh. "All right, just this once. Don't make a habit of it." At this point, my anger had reached its peak. "Don't worry, sir, I know my limits. I won't put you in a difficult position." My CO knew my temperament and didn't waste any more words. "Report your position. I'll handle the rest." Just as I was about to speak, the guard snatched the phone from my hand. "Hey, you're this kid's so-called leader, right? Let me give you a little warning. The Montgomery Estate isn't a place just anyone can enter. Even high-ranking city officials need an appointment." My CO was probably stunned. In all his years, no one had ever dared to speak to him like that. He was silent for a few seconds. "I heard from Sincere that you're the one who tore up the marriage contract and threatened to break his legs." The guard, still oblivious to who he had offended, maintained his smug attitude. "Yeah, that was me. What are you going to do about it?" Even through the phone, I could feel my CO's rage. "Since you admit it, that makes things much simpler. Pack your bags. You're going to prison." The guard was taken aback by the CO's explosive temper and immediately shot back. "You old bastard, stop acting tough over the phone if you've got the guts. Come to the Montgomery estate and arrest me yourself, hanging up." The guard looked at me with a triumphant smirk, as if showing off. Seeing this unfold, I couldn't hold it in any longer and burst out laughing. "Miss Montgomery, I have to say, your guard dog is certainly brave. He even dares to curse out my commanding officer." Victoria seemed completely unconcerned by my well-intentioned warning. I don't care about your damn Q. This is the capital. I'd like to see who dares arrest one of my family's people today." I quirked my lips into a slight smile. "Oh, right. I almost forgot to tell you something. I'm the Special Forces operative who rescued you 5 years ago." Call sign Knight. Just as my words fell, someone in the crowd shouted, "Look over there." What is that? Everyone turned to look across the street. A convoy of a dozen black Audi A6s with official red license plates was escorting a mahogany coffin, heading straight for us in a grand procession. Chapter 5. Seeing this, the guard glanced at me, his face turning pale. "Gentlemen, what an honor. If you'd given me a heads up, I could have informed Mr. Montgomery." As soon as he finished, a distinguished middle-aged man stepped out of a car. "We're here for a funeral. No need to report." His words made every head in the crowd turn to me. Wayne Miller stared at me, his face a mask of disbelief. With a cold smile, I slowly stepped forward. "I'm sorry to trouble you gentlemen so late at night." The middle-aged man glanced at me discreetly, then firmly gripped my hands, as expected of a peace medal recipient. "It's an honor, Mr. Knight." Seeing this, the guard couldn't help but ask, Gentlemen, are you sure you have the right person? This guy's just an out-of-towner. How could he command such a scene?" The middle-aged man, Director Evans, whipped his head around, his expression grave. "You're the head of security for the Montgomery estate, Wayne Miller, correct?" Wayne subconsciously nodded. "Then there's no mistake. Besides attending the funeral today, we have another mission from our superiors." He paused, his eyes suddenly turning sharp as steel. To make an arrest at these words, Wayne's body jolted and his face went white as a sheet. "Yes, sir, for the sake of the Montgomery family, could you perhaps give me a hint as to who we're dealing with?" "Sorry, that's classified." Director Evans' reply was curt and final. After this exchange, cold sweat beaded on Wayne's forehead. Seeing her own guard being put in his place, Victoria Montgomery felt her family's honor was on the line and quickly stepped forward. "Sir, I am Victoria Montgomery, daughter of Harrison Montgomery, chairman of the Montgomery Group. I believe I have the right to know who he is." Director Evans sighed softly, a troubled look on his face. "Miss Montgomery, I advise you not to get involved in this, otherwise your entire family could be implicated." His statement caused an uproar. What? Did I hear that right? He's not even giving face to Miss Montgomery? To summon such high-level figures with just one phone call. There are very few people in this country with that kind of power, right? I knew this kid had some serious backing. Now this is getting interesting. As the chatter grew, Victoria's face became paler. I calmly walked up to her and spoke with a cold smile. "So, Miss Montgomery, may I come in now?" Victoria froze for a few seconds, stammering before she finally spoke. "Well, the marriage contract is already destroyed. What's the point of coming in now?" I curled my lip into a smirk and shook my head. "It seems you still don't understand, Miss Montgomery. As I said before, if the wedding is off, I can always hold a funeral." Chapter 6. I turned my head to look at the head of security, who is still lost in his own world. "Wayne, weren't you just so sure that it didn't matter who showed up? Destroying my grandfather's last wish, publicly threatening a peace medal recipient. Do you really think the Montgomery family will still protect you?" The moment I finished, someone in the crowd gasped. What did I hear that right? This kid looks so young, but he has a peace medal. No wonder he was so calm facing the Montgomery family. He's backed by the entire nation. Wayne's eyes went dim, and he stammered, "How could this be? I thought it was just an ordinary marriage contract." I shot him a sidelong glance. "You regret it now, don't you, Wayne?" Did you think my out-of-town accent meant you could just push me around? The guard was speechless, forced to turn to the heiress beside him for help. Miss Montgomery, I've guarded your family's gate for so many years. You can't just abandon me. I watched the sweat-drenched guard with a faint smile. Don't waste your breath, Wayne. Your Miss Montgomery can't even save herself. How is she going to save you? At my words, Victoria's face darkened. Your name is Knight, right? Don't push it, don't you forget. This is the capital, so what if you saved my life once? That was your job. Oh? So from the sound of it, Miss Montgomery, you think your family runs this city? With that, I pulled out my phone and held it up. How about I personally call your father and ask him who's really in charge here? Without giving Victoria time to react, I dialed Harrison Montgomery's number in front of everyone. It only rang a few times before he picked up. Ah, Mr. Knight, his voice boomed cheerfully. You must have met my daughter by now. Are you pleased with her? I gave Victoria a meaningful look and said slowly, Harrison Montgomery, I only have one question for you. Has life been too comfortable for the Montgomery family lately? Before he could process what was happening, I adopted the same threatening tone his guard had used with my CO. Get back to the estate in 10 minutes or I won't mind finding a new richest man for this city on the other end. Harrison Montgomery was silent for a moment, followed by the sound of a glass shattering on the floor. Mr. Knight, please calm down. I'm on my way back now. The conversation was loud enough for everyone to hear, and the crowd was in an uproar. Damn, this kid is audacious. He doesn't even respect the chairman of the Montgomery Group. Everyone who's anyone in the capital owes Mr. Montgomery a favor. Even with a peace medal, he shouldn't be going head-to-head with the Montgomery family like this. As the current representative of the Montgomery family, Victoria was fuming. Knight, I don't care what your background is. The Montgomery family will not let you go. I raised an eyebrow and waved a dismissive hand at her. You have that backward, Miss Montgomery. The question isn't whether your family will let me go, but whether I will let you go with that. I gestured grandly to the men behind me. Bring in the coffin. Let's get started without my command. I'd like to see who dares to move, Victoria shrieked. At her command, a dozen well-trained bodyguards swarmed out, surrounding me. Stop this at once, just in the nick of time, an urgent voice called out from a distance. In the blink of an eye, a man of impressive stature ran up to me, panting heavily. Mr. Knight, I am so sorry. You must have been terribly alarmed. Chapter 7. Seeing the scene before him, the capital's richest man instantly understood what had happened. He completely ignored Victoria, ran straight to me and gave me a deep bow. It's all my fault for not raising my daughter properly. Please, Mr. Knight, calm your anger. I quickly helped him up, a faint smile on my lips. Mr. Montgomery, there's no need for such formalities. Half an hour ago, I just called off the engagement with your daughter. From now on, we go our separate ways. My connection to the Montgomery family is over. Harrison Montgomery opened his mouth to say something more, but seeing my cold expression, he channeled all his fury onto his daughter. With a loud smack, 5 red fingerprints appeared on Victoria's cheek. You fool, do you have any idea what you've done? Victoria was clearly stunned by the slap, looking at her father in utter confusion. Dad, why did you hit me? He just saved my life once. We can just give him more money. Why do I have to marry him? Hearing Victoria's words, I didn't get angry. Instead, the smile on my face widened. Let's put the marriage aside. Today, I'm just here to get justice for my grandfather. Victoria erupted in fury, apparently having already forgotten the slap from her father. Knight, I'm warning you. Stop putting on an act. It was just a marriage contract. Why make such a big deal out of it? Just a marriage contract, was it? That was the only memento my grandfather had left in this world. Harrison Montgomery, the only one present who knew the full truth, was sweating profusely. Victoria, shut your mouth. I don't care what your reasons are. Apologize to Mr. Knight right now if you keep up. This nonsense, I swear I will disown you. Harrison's words were powerful and clear, reaching the ears of everyone present. The guard, who had been so arrogant just moments before, was completely bewildered. He couldn't figure out why, At my young age, I had earned such high regard from Harrison Montgomery. No, it wasn't just regard, it was reverence. Mr. Montgomery, this kid is clearly looking down on your family. Miss Montgomery was just trying to defend your family's honor. Why are you so angry? Even if he has some connections, this is still the capital. It's not like he can turn the city upside down, can he? The onlookers nodded in agreement with the security captain's words. Only Harrison Montgomery thought differently. To outsiders, it might seem like he was getting old and couldn't grasp the current situation. But only I knew he had only one goal in doing this: to win back my favor and make a last-ditch effort to save the Montgomery family. I found an excellent vantage point and slowly sat down, temporarily leaving the scene in the hands of the capital's richest man. And Harrison Montgomery's performance did not disappoint. To please me, he pointed at the guard in front of everyone, and disregarding his own image, began to curse him out. "You're Wayne Miller, right? In my capacity as the head of the Montgomery family, I am officially informing you that you are fired." His words were the last straw that broke Wayne's spirit. Just as the scene reached a stalemate, the clueless Victoria stood up again. "Dad, why are you firing our own people? Wasn't he right? Yes, this kid saved my life once, but does that mean I have to marry him because of it?" Victoria kept trying to explain herself to her father, but never once mentioned the fact that she had destroyed my marriage contract. Seeing this, the last shred of goodwill I had for the Montgomery family vanished. "Enough, Victoria Montgomery, I should never have saved you." Chapter 8. Harrison Montgomery broke out in a cold sweat and quickly covered his daughter's mouth. "Mr. Knight, why don't you name your price?" I tugged at the corner of my mouth in a wry smile. "Name my price, Mr. Montgomery? Are you trying to solve this with money? To be honest with you, I've met plenty of tough characters overseas, but I've never seen an heiress as arrogant and unreasonable as your daughter. If it were an ordinary person here today, would they just have to suffer her abuse?" Harrison Montgomery trembled, not daring to meet my gaze. "Mr. Knight, we were in the wrong today. I'm willing to compensate you, just name it and I won't haggle." I give you my word, Victoria had never seen her father so humble. To save face in front of the crowd, she jumped in first. "Dad, our family has been in the capital for so many years. We know some powerful people. How can you bow down to someone so easily?" I met her gaze, a hint of amusement in my tone. "So, you want to compare connections, Miss Montgomery?" Although I hadn't been in the country much these past few years, I had met my share of hidden tycoons. But in terms of wealth or power, the Montgomery family didn't even rank among the people I knew. "Knight, I'm warning you. I'm not as easily fooled as my father. If you really have some power, then show it. Let's see how you bring down the Montgomery family." I glanced at my watch and let out a cold laugh. "Confidence is a good thing, Miss Montgomery, but blind confidence is your mistake. Since you want to witness the downfall of the Montgomery group firsthand, I'll grant your wish the moment I finished." Harrison Montgomery's face changed drastically. Before he could speak, I raised my hand to stop him. "Mr. Montgomery, you heard what your daughter said, right? If I don't respond today, people will think someone from my top-secret unit is a pushover." As soon as I finished speaking, Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at me furtively, hesitated for a few seconds, and finally answered. "What did you say?" "Say that again." Victoria stared at me with wide, disbelieving eyes. "What? There's a problem with the group's financial statements? They've been frozen indefinitely? And the investigation team is directly from the cabinet?" After confirming the details with her legal team, Victoria was completely stunned. "Knight, don't tell me." This was all you. Victoria's expression told me that even after hearing the news of her company's collapse with her own ears, she still couldn't believe I was capable of it. This time, however, I didn't even need to speak. Harrison Montgomery, who had been holding it in for so long, could no longer contain himself and roared, "Victoria, how did I raise such an idiot? Aren't you satisfied with the trouble you've caused? Do you have to drag the entire family down with you before you stop?" Harrison slapped his thigh, looking utterly disappointed. "My dear girl, don't you understand even now why I insisted you marry Mr. Knight? It's not because he saved you. It's because with Mr. Knight in the family, our business could reach new heights. He is the only living recipient of the Peace Medal in this country. Do you have any idea what that honor represents? Harrison grew more emotional as he spoke, until he was stomping his feet in frustration. I wasn't being arrogant, but if I had been a little more ruthless, the entire Montgomery family would have vanished from the capital. After Harrison's heartfelt persuasion, Victoria finally came to her senses. Dad, you mean his background is so powerful that even our family can't afford to offend him? At that moment, the way everyone looked at me had changed completely. It was now filled with fear, especially the security captain, who was hiding in the crowd, trembling and not daring to meet my eyes. You should be glad, Miss Montgomery, that you didn't do anything more to cross the line. Otherwise, your fate would be far worse than Wayne's. Chapter 9. Victoria's face was streaked with tears, her voice choked with sobs. Mr. Knight, I know I was wrong. It was my fault for being blind and underestimating your power. How about this? We can go to the courthouse tomorrow and get the license. We can just pretend the whole thing about calling off the engagement was a joke. I curled my lip into a smirk. A joke? A destroyed contract leads to a destroyed dynasty. Surely you understand that principle, Miss Montgomery? My words hit her like a thunderclap, leaving her speechless. Seeing the current state of the Montgomery Group, Chairman Harrison Montgomery could only sigh quietly on the side. The scene was terrifyingly quiet. Everyone was curious about how I would deal with the Montgomery family next. After a long pause, I turned to the dejected Harrison Montgomery and sighed softly. Mr. Montgomery, for my grandfather's sake, I can consider letting your family off the hook, but I have one condition. Hearing my words, Harrison's eyes suddenly lit up. Mr. Knight, please tell me, what is the condition? As long as you're willing to spare the Montgomery family, I'll do whatever you ask. I pointed a finger at the tear-stained face of Victoria and gave a mysterious smile. First, my grandfather's funeral must be personally handled by her without delay. Second, I don't want to see this woman in the capital ever again. The moment I finished, Victoria's expression changed instantly. Knight, what do you mean by that? Are you telling my father to disown me and kick me out of the family? I spread my hands, looking at her with a half smile. Miss Montgomery, weren't you just begging me to spare your family? Now I've given you a solution, and you're not happy? It's so hard to be the good guy. I paused, pointing to the scattered pieces of paper on the ground. I gave you a chance before. You didn't take it. You have no one to blame but yourself. I said that last part intentionally for Harrison Montgomery's benefit. It clarified my stance while also leaving a way out for the Montgomery family. After a moment's hesitation, Harrison nodded at me firmly. Mr. Knight, we will do as you say. After the funeral, I will hold a press conference as the head of the Montgomery family, and I will publicly announce that I am severing all father-daughter ties with this woman. Victoria wanted to make one last struggle, but no matter what she said now, it was too late to change anything. As for the instigator of the whole incident, the security captain was secretly sent to prison that very night. Just for the crime of insulting my CO on the phone, he would likely not see freedom for the rest of his life. The Montgomery estate, which was never open to the public, invited the elites from all walks of life in the city to give my grandfather a grand send-off. The funeral lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Victoria was busy from start to finish, not daring to show a hint of neglect. On the night before my leave ended, I bought a bottle of my grandfather's favorite liquor and sat before the memorial altar. 1 glass for me, 1 for him, until the sun came up. End of story. My name is Sincere Clark. My wife, Victoria Bellwether, and I were childhood sweethearts, bound by an arranged marriage agreement since we were children. In the 3rd year of our marriage, she hired her college white moonlight, an idealized former crush, as her personal assistant. I demanded Victoria immediately fire him, but she refused, plunging us into the silent treatment. About 6 months later, my mother was nearing death and, wanting to see Victoria pregnant with my child before she passed, I approached Victoria to discuss a temporary reconciliation. She pondered the request and agreed. After a month of dedicated effort, Victoria was pregnant. Just as my mother was fading, wishing for one last look at Victoria's burgeoning belly, I received devastating news. Victoria had suffered a miscarriage after donating blood for that former crush. Fortunately, I had a child outside of the marriage. Chapter 1. The atmosphere at my mother, Martha Clark's funeral was deeply subdued. Behind me, people were watching me with strange looks. In the spot that should have been occupied by my wife, Victoria Bellwether, stood my long-term partner, Vivian Johnson. She was also holding a child in her arms. Vivian replaced Victoria, accompanying me to say a final goodbye to my mother. After the funeral ended, Victoria's father, my father-in-law, Arthur Bellwether, stopped me. "Sincere, this was your mother's funeral, so I didn't say anything earlier. But what is the meaning of bringing your mistress and illegitimate son to her funeral? Have you considered the impact this will have on both of our companies?" Arthur was furious. However, his anger wasn't rooted in his son-in-law's infidelity. It was because I had allowed Vivian to appear publicly as the daughter-in-law. This was undoubtedly signaling to everyone that the mistress of the Clark Group was about to be replaced. I leaned casually against a nearby sofa. "Uncle Arthur, I didn't have a choice. Your daughter aborted my child for the sake of that gigolo, and now she's still laid up in the hospital. I had to find someone to replace her. I couldn't let my mother pass away worried, could I? Besides, if Victoria hadn't shown up, wouldn't people still talk?" Arthur's face was ashen, and he fell silent for a moment. He knew Victoria was keeping a male assistant, and he had warned her about it at the time, but Victoria was too headstrong and insisted on doing things her way. Moreover, since I hadn't made a fuss, he hadn't delved further. After all, in elite circles, mutual infidelity is the norm. You'd be hard-pressed to find even one genuine monogamous romance out of 10 marriages, but this time Victoria going so far as to donate blood for her kept gigolo, and causing herself a miscarriage was truly excessive. Not to mention her headstrong refusal cost her the chance to see my mother one last time. The fact that I called him Uncle Arthur instead of Dad showed he had truly incurred my wrath. Nonetheless, he still had to clean up the mess. Arthur weighed his words carefully, softening his tone. "Cindy, I know Tori went too far this time, but bringing your partner to your mother's funeral has caused her immense public humiliation. Can you forgive her just this once, for my sake? We've had too many collaborations. If you two divorce, it will be a massive loss for both corporations." I didn't reply. I retrieved a stack of photos from a bag behind me and placed them in front of him. Arthur's face immediately darkened as he looked at the pictures of young women. He recognized a few. They were all his illegitimate daughters. As for the ones he didn't recognize, they were likely his illegitimate daughters as well. "Sincere, what is the meaning of this?" I chuckled softly. "Uncle Arthur, you may have misunderstood me." I watched Arthur's eyes, which looked ready to devour me, knowing he suspected I was threatening him with his private life. I wasn't foolish enough to do that. Arthur and Eleanor had always played the field. Even if Eleanor saw these photos, as long as Victoria retained her inheritance rights, she wouldn't even glance at them. Arthur's expression eased. Threatening him with his illegitimate children was useless, like throwing muck, disgusting but ineffective. He was relieved I hadn't sunk to that level of stupidity. "Then what do you want? The alliance continues, but the player has to change." Arthur immediately understood. I would remain allied with the Bellwether family, but the partner would change from Victoria to one of his illegitimate daughters. Since the Bellwether group was still firmly under his control, as long as I married his daughter, it made little difference to him which one it was. The only ones who would object were Victoria and her mother, but Eleanor and Victoria held minimal shares. With my backing, any internal turmoil would be easily contained. However, considering that Victoria and I grew up together, he felt compelled to confirm, "Are you truly ready to give up Tori?" I nodded solemnly. "I've made up my mind. The Clark family's strength was comparable to the Bellwethers, and our mutual interests were deeply intertwined. Any issues in our cooperation would result in huge losses for both sides. As for trying to seize the Bellwether group entirely, that was impossible. Arthur personally controlled the company. Avoiding losses at the hands of that old fox was already a feat for a younger businessman like me." Arthur's expression shifted several times before he asked, "Which one do you have your eye on?" "This one. If it doesn't work out, we can always swap again." "You little bastard," Arthur grumbled, glancing at the photo I pointed to. The girl in the picture was strolling through a campus, smiling brightly, looking incredibly youthful and sweet. Chapter 2. After chatting with Arthur for a while longer, I drove to Vivian Johnson's apartment. When she saw me, she skillfully stepped forward, took my coat and hung it up. Seeing only her in the apartment, I casually asked, "Why are you alone? Where's the nanny?" Vivian offered a mischievous smile. "I knew you were coming, so I gave her the afternoon off." I walked into the living room. Silas was lying in his crib, fiddling with a toy. When he saw me, he immediately started laughing, his round eyes curving into little crescents. After playing with Silas for a while, I felt a soft touch from behind. I turned, embracing Vivian, and pressed my forehead against hers. "Thank you for taking care of the child. It's no hardship as long as you visit me often." After holding her for a while, I led her to the adjoining room. Early the next morning, Victoria stormed into the conference room, consumed by rage. Due to the blood donation and miscarriage, she looked extremely weak, but anger had brought a sickly, unnatural flush to her face. The assistant rushed to apologize. "Mr. Clark, Madam insisted on coming up. I couldn't stop her." "It's fine," I said. I waved him away, signaling him to leave. Victoria and I were not yet divorced. He wouldn't dare forcibly restrain her. There was no need to hassle an employee. "Meeting adjourned," I announced, gesturing for the others present to leave. Once the room was empty, Victoria exploded. "Sincere Clark, you truly are something else. I never imagined you were secretly keeping a mistress and fathering a bastard child." I refuted her, utterly unconcerned. "Why not? If you can keep a gigolo, why can't I have a female confidant? Don't be such a hypocrite." Victoria slammed her hand onto the table. "How many times do I have to say it? Nothing happened between me and Makoto Davies. I just felt sorry for him and wanted to help him." I scoffed. "Victoria, do you even believe that yourself? Nothing happened? You donated blood for him and caused your own miscarriage. I despise your cowardice, denying what you've done." Victoria panicked. "He was injured protecting me during the car crash. Were you expecting me to just let him die? Makoto Davies and I are innocent. You're just petty. And speaking of which, let's talk about your mistress. You haven't come home for days on end for the past year. You've been staying with her, haven't you?" Victoria grew angrier the more she spoke. In her narrative, my infidelity was an unforgivable sin, and perhaps that's exactly how she felt she should think. Chapter 3. Victoria and I were genuine childhood sweethearts. To comply with state policies back then, both Victoria and I were only children, at least officially. We were engaged through an arranged marriage agreement when we were very young. Our families agreed that we would have 2 children. The first would take the Clark surname, and the second the Bellwether surname, ensuring the inheritance of both family enterprises. Victoria, who didn't quite grasp the concept of marriage, followed me everywhere like a tiny shadow after hearing the adults say I was the person who would accompany her for life. Sometimes I found her too clingy and called her tag along. She would just retort indignantly, "I'll tag along. I will." Elementary school, middle school, high school, and university, we were always together. The moment we turned 18, we tasted the forbidden fruit. I still remember her nestled in my arms, asking me over and over again to promise I would never betray her. I knew she lacked security. The marriages of both my parents and Victoria's parents were purely transactional alliances. Her parents played the field. After Victoria was born, her father constantly replaced his young, beautiful secretaries, right up until now. Some were even younger than Victoria. Her mother was the same, cycling through younger men. The two rarely came home throughout the year to check on the daughter they had practically forgotten. Even when they did meet, their interactions were lukewarm, a casual question about her grades, followed by hollow words about working hard. My family was slightly better. My mother, Martha, came from a scholarly background and stayed home to raise me after I was born. No matter how many women my father entertained outside, as long as it wasn't flaunted in front of her, she simply ignored it. And because my mother was discreet, my father, while enjoying his affairs, never fathered any illegitimate children outside of marriage. Victoria always regarded my mother as her own and saw me as her sole pillar of support. 18-year-old Victoria couldn't understand why her mother was willing to be intimate with one man after another. She neither wanted the kind of marriage where partners played the field, nor did she want to end up lonely like my mother. That's why she kept such a tight leash on me in college. She was terrified I would be lured away by some femme fatale. Until Makoto Davies appeared. Chapter 4. Out of consideration for our past relationship, I decided to give Victoria a proper explanation one last time, hopefully preventing her from harassing me after the divorce. Tori, do you remember the novel Dragon Raja we read together in middle school? Victoria froze, confused by my sudden shift in topic. I continued. There was a passage in Dragon Raja that read, "For a boy, it is too easy to fall in love with a girl. As long as she is pretty enough, there can be 1,000 or 10,000 reasons for him to develop feelings the first time he sees her. Those reasons might be her bright vitality, her scholarly composure, or the unintentional loneliness she reveals, but all of it hinges on her beauty. I grew up with you, but that doesn't mean I won't be attracted to other women. Vivian Johnson was an upperclassman at our university, and she is beautiful. Her features perfectly align with my aesthetic preferences. It was easy for me to fall for her with just a little attention. By the same logic, when I realized you were interested in Makoto Davies in college, I didn't lose my temper with you. Because no one can be attracted to only one person of the opposite sex their entire life. Makoto Davies was an upperclassman in Victoria's department. The first time Victoria mentioned Makoto's name, it coincided with a period when she was obsessed with campus romance novels. She claimed Makoto looked exactly like the hero of one of those books. Then she proceeded to tell me the plot. The poor campus heartthrob falls for the rich heiress, but silently hides his feelings due to their class differences. After the heiress is betrayed by her scumbag childhood sweetheart, the poor heartthrob successfully launches his own business and sweeps her into a loving, sudden marriage. The scumbag childhood sweetheart regrets it forever. It wasn't hard to figure out that the girl was trying to provoke me, urging me to love her properly, or else I would regret it. I simply stroked her head affectionately, choosing not to tell her that novels were lies. Those who successfully started businesses either had connections or married a powerful woman. In modern society, starting from scratch is nearly impossible. Even if you succeed, without powerful backing, you're bound to be robbed of your achievements. Initially, this was just a minor incident, but later Victoria and Makoto joined the same research group, and his name began to appear more and more in her conversation. She'd talk about how he came from a struggling background and was the hope of his entire village, how his tuition was paid for by his sister's hard labor, and he needed to repay her and give her a good life. These were things Makoto had told her, which she faithfully repeated to me. What kind of nonsense was that? If he had time to talk about such useless things, he should have gotten 2 more part-time jobs. After a while, I grew irritated. I also realized that Victoria felt a different kind of pull toward Makoto. So I told Victoria, if you like him, you can keep him as a kept man. From that day on, Victoria never mentioned Makoto Davies' name to me again. For a period, I would occasionally check in on Victoria to ensure nothing was happening with Makoto before I finally relaxed. I never expected that guy to resurface years later. The moment I saw him, I knew he wanted to live off Victoria's wealth. Chapter 5. I've said it many times, nothing happened between me and Makoto Davies. I didn't like him in college, and I don't like him now. I simply wanted to help him because his family was struggling. Victoria's voice was hoarse and desperate, as if she were suffering a profound injustice. He's a grown man with functioning hands and feet. Was he starving, or did someone in his family have a terminal illness that required your pity? Forget it, that's not important. I sighed, my tone suddenly becoming stern. After Makoto joined the Bellwether Group, you actively kept him by your side as an assistant. Victoria, I asked you to fire him, and you refused. I gave you a chance. I can overlook your feelings for other people, but you shouldn't keep him right next to you. Victoria's already pale face went even whiter. Seeing her look like this, I felt a sudden surge of excitement and a desire for revenge. I spoke with malice. Do you know when Vivian and I officially got together? The day you refused me. The moment you rejected me, I had someone track her down. That very day, that evening, I stayed the night at her place. In fact, I should thank you. You gave me the perfect justification for infidelity. You bastard, Victoria was broken. You're just making excuses for being a cheater. I looked at her coldly. Think whatever you want. Before we married, I made it clear. People in our circle face far more temptations than ordinary people. If you couldn't stay true, you should have just spoken up. As long as we produced the air and then played the field, we could have remained friends. But look at what you did. You kept the man you constantly talked about in college right by your side as an assistant. You aborted our child for him, missing my mother's last moments, all while claiming you were innocent. What exactly did you want? To have your cake and eat it too? If so, you're utterly shameless. You want everything on your terms. Victoria was stunned into silence. After a long while, she finally spoke again. Then I'll fire Makoto Davies, and you send away that woman Vivian Johnson. I won't even hold the illegitimate child against you. I'll give her a large sum of money, provided she never shows her face in front of you again. We can start over, okay? Cindy. She bit her lip, her eyes brimming with tears, looking as if she were suffering immense agony. That's impossible, Victoria, I flatly refused. Why? That woman is definitely after your money. Why else would she agree to be your mistress? Are you going to choose a tramp who spreads her legs for money? Smack. Watch your mouth. Victoria was stunned by the slap, clutching her face, her eyes scarlet as she stared at me. Chapter 6. There was one thing about Vivian and me that I had never told anyone. When I was in college, my mother was hospitalized. I saw Vivian in the hallway downstairs and secretly followed her. I discovered that her mother was also hospitalized there. The difference was that my mother was in the very important person suite, while her mother was squeezed into the corridor receiving an IV drip. After talking to the doctor, I learned that Vivian's mother was undergoing conservative treatment because they couldn't afford the surgery. Being younger then, I felt a pang of pity. On impulse, I covered the cost of the surgery without letting Vivian know I was involved. When I went to see her that day, I had instructed my people to retrieve the original payment receipt for the surgery from the hospital records. After accepting her heartfelt gratitude, I made my proposal. I wanted a long-term arrangement. She was surprised, but she wasn't angry. After a moment of consideration, she immediately accepted my terms. Throughout the past year we'd been together, she had always been incredibly docile. She never asked me for anything, she simply accepted whatever I offered. In bed, she was different from Victoria. Victoria was the conservative type, she just lay there, unmoving. Vivian, however, was willing to be positioned in any way I desired. All in all, over this long period, she had certainly secured a significant place in my heart. Hearing Victoria insult her, I grew furious. I rubbed my temples. Victoria, don't forget what you did. I can forgive other things, but don't forget what you did to my mother. You were practically raised by her. She wanted to see you one last time before she passed. What were you doing instead? You had a miscarriage, donating blood for your gigolo. Are you even human? In truth, my mother passed away without regret. The thing a mother desires most is her son's happiness. Her love for Victoria was only second-hand, an extension of her love for me. Once she confirmed I would be fine without Victoria, she was relieved. Besides, a 3-month fetus was nothing compared to an already born grandson. After seeing Silas, she passed away with a smile, but that was beside the point. The fact that my mother passed peacefully is a testament to my capabilities as her son. I didn't act like a pathetic fool, putting all my hope in Victoria. If she didn't want to carry my child, there were plenty of women in the world who would. But she still needed to be condemned. My mother had been so good to her since childhood, and this shameless creature nearly caused my mother to die with a heavy heart. She needed to realize how wicked she had been so she would feel guilty. This would also prevent her from doing anything rash, like going after Vivian. Still, I couldn't be careless. I planned to move Vivian and Silas to a new residence and arrange for more bodyguards. Chapter 7. After saying my piece to Victoria, I ignored her attempts to continue arguing and instructed 2 female employees to escort her out. I then instructed my lawyer to coordinate the divorce proceedings with Arthur. Given Arthur's influence, forcing Victoria to sign the divorce papers shouldn't be difficult. As for whether his family would descend into chaos because of it, what did I care? About a week later, Arthur arrived with the signed divorce agreement, accompanied by a woman. Perhaps woman wasn't the right word, girl was more appropriate. Arthur's complexion was poor, marked by several scratches clearly left by Eleanor. He glared at me and grumbled, "This is my daughter, Charlotte Bellwether. Get acquainted." After Arthur left, I looked at the girl before me. According to my investigation, this girl was only 19, a freshman in college. She was the most attractive of Arthur's illegitimate daughters and had never had a boyfriend. Since it was an alliance regardless, I might as well enjoy the better option. To ensure she understood her position and didn't get carried away once married, I prepared to lay down the rules. I intentionally kept my face stern. Your father must have explained why he brought you here, right? Charlotte nodded, her bright eyes fixed on mine. My father told me. He wants me to marry you. Don't worry, if you marry me, I will be obedient. And I'm clean. You can inspect the merchandise first. I was slightly taken aback. The girl knew the drill. It seemed unnecessary to establish boundaries after all, but I was definitely interested in her offer to inspect the merchandise. Without being pretentious, I grabbed her hand and led her upstairs. Chapter 8. A few days later, I was surprised when Makoto Davies tried to ambush me on the road. He suddenly darted out while my driver was waiting at a traffic light. He was banging on the car window, his face bruised. Based on the information I received, Arthur had him beaten up and threatened his life to force Victoria to sign the divorce papers. I couldn't fathom why this guy still had the nerve to seek me out after Arthur had disciplined him. To be honest, before Victoria's miscarriage, I never paid him any mind. In our circles, as long as the mistress or kept man didn't flaunt themselves in front of the legal spouse, no one would bother to seek them out. However, since Makoto was responsible for the loss of my child, I was somewhat interested in hearing him out. After all, this would be the last time he ever saw me. In a cafe, Makoto and I sat across from each other. After my bodyguard thoroughly searched him to confirm he wasn't carrying any weapons, I began our conversation. I couldn't be too careful. A friend of mine had become obsessed with online horror stories about mistresses, constantly warning me that the mistress's vengeance is comparable to an imperial weapon of ultimate destruction. So I'd been sensitive to the topic lately. Of course, Vivian didn't count. She was my confidant. As soon as he sat down, he spoke eagerly. Mr. Clark, I came here because there's something I need to tell you. Actually, Ms. Bellwether has always loved you. I was just a pawn she used to provoke you. Oh? I looked at him with a half-smile. Tell me more. A cunning gleam flashed in Makoto's eyes and he spoke excitedly. Ms. Bellwether told me when she hired me as her assistant that she felt you were too busy with work and rarely communicated with her after marriage. She wanted to use me to provoke you, hoping you would pay more attention to her. She specifically warned me not to have any inappropriate ideas. I came here today to explain clearly and hope you can forgive her small act of willfulness. I recalled Makoto's words. I had indeed been preoccupied with work after marriage. There was even a period when I would return home, have sex with Victoria, and immediately fall asleep. In that regard, I was certainly remiss as a husband. Even though I was focused on securing control of the company, quickly unlike Victoria, who would be casually kicked out by Arthur after the divorce, it was no excuse for neglecting her. But even if Victoria had the intentions Makoto described, I still couldn't forgive her. There were many ways to solve the problem. She could have talked to me, argued with me, or made a fuss. I would have tolerated her temper. After 20-plus years of history, even if our relationship had evolved from love to familial affection, I could have accommodated her petty behavior. But she chose the one method I could never accept. She loved me, so she flirted with another man to provoke me? How deranged do you have to be to think of that? Besides, I didn't believe him. Before I could speak, Victoria rushed into the cafe. Cindy, Makoto has explained everything to you. Now you believe we are innocent, don't you? Her face was streaked with tears and looked unspeakably haggard. Cindy. It was a very old endearment. She had only called me that in elementary school. I recovered myself. Victoria, perhaps you did keep Makoto around with some of the motives he mentioned. But I don't believe you kept him as your assistant for a year without harboring some other intention. Also, have you ever heard the saying, once suspicion takes root, the guilt is already established. So, there is no possibility for us anymore. I stood up to leave. As I reached the door, a group of police officers rushed in and handcuffed Makoto. Chapter 9. What are you doing? Victoria tried to grab the police officers. I gave a look to my bodyguard, who immediately stepped forward, bound Victoria's hands behind her, and pressed her against the table. I walked up to Victoria and looked down at her. I had someone investigate, and the car accident you mentioned was staged by Makoto Davies. The reason? To make you feel guilty toward him. Victoria's pupils immediately constricted, and she started screaming hysterically. Impossible, absolutely impossible, sincere. Come back and explain yourself, husband. With that, I strode out of the cafe. Having done this, I felt I had been as benevolent as possible toward Victoria. Then I took out my phone and sent a text message to Arthur. Tori hasn't been mentally well lately. It might be best to send her abroad for treatment. As for Makoto Davies, he was responsible for the loss of my child's life. I had no intention of letting him go. I had initially planned to find a woman with HIV to seduce him and expose him once he contracted the disease, making him wish he were dead. I never expected the police to discover he staged the accident first. He would be found to have contracted HIV in prison in a few months. Lucky him. Epilogue. Charlotte Bellwether, I'm rich. Mr. Clark. Ugh, husband is so generous. I kissed the black card in my hand over and over. Ignoring the stinging pain in my lower body, I took a taxi to an ATM and checked the balance, a full $2 million. With that much money, how many designer bags could I buy? Wait, Mother taught me to buy property first and secure a fallback plan. No, I'll buy a car first. It's flashy, and I can be available immediately whenever husband calls. I've known since I was very young that I was the daughter of the other woman. Whenever father came to see mother, she'd send me out to play alone. Unfortunately, as mother aged, father came less and less often, so mother taught me not to be useless like her, destined to be a mere mistress who would be abandoned when she got old. She told me I had to marry rich and secure my status. I was different from her. Even as an illegitimate child, the chairman of the Bellwether Group was still my father. Plus, I was prettier than her. If I encountered a wealthy heir who wasn't too bright, I could use my pedigree as a banner and have a real shot at becoming the legal wife. To increase my chances of success, mother taught me all the techniques she had used over the years to seduce men. When I started university, I was just about to practice on a few supplicants when a massive surprise landed in my lap. My father, the man who hadn't been in my life for nearly 10 years, stood before me and announced he was introducing me to a husband. Having not seen him for so long, I was initially terrified that he was trying to sell me off to some old, ugly man. But seeing the bodyguards next to him, I didn't dare resist. When I learned he was the CEO of the Clark Group and only 28, I was stunned. 28? That was nothing. Girls my age in my social group were already serving 48-year-old men, and those girls boasted about those old men all the time. So, I patiently listened to my father's explanation. It turned out that my half-sister had been keeping a gigolo outside the marriage. She caused herself a miscarriage trying to save him, and was subsequently returned goods. Because of the collaboration between the two families, the Clarks demanded a trade-in for a new model, and I was luckily chosen. If I could satisfy him, I could achieve my ultimate dream of becoming a wealthy wife. The moment I saw Sincere Clark, my eyes glazed over. Rich and handsome, wasn't this my dream husband? My last ounce of hesitation vanished. I couldn't let such a perfect man fall into the hands of my sisters. I decided to go all in and offer the only valuable thing I had left, my purity. Afterward, his simple "you're quite good" sounded like the music of the heavens. Taking the money he gave me, the first thing I did was tell mother the good news. We hugged, tears of joy streaming down our faces. Since I was 2.5 years shy of the legal age for marriage, mother began imparting her treasured techniques, vowing to help me secure this man's heart over the next 30 months. She even helped me choose my battle robes. From that day on, I spent every free moment fostering my relationship with my husband. After a while, I was surprised to discover that this man, 9 years my senior, was unexpectedly pure. He actually blushed when I crawled under his desk at the office. Moreover, I learned he only had one mistress outside the marriage, unlike my scumbag father, who slept around indiscriminately. However, learning that his mistress had already given him a son gave me a serious sense of crisis. To ensure my $2 million monthly allowance didn't stop, I used every trick I knew to get pregnant with Sincere's child. During the pregnancy, I started worrying again, afraid I would lose favor because I couldn't properly serve him. After all, we weren't married yet, and some of my sisters had caught wind of the situation and were already launching their attacks on Sincere. Even though Sincere had his bodyguards chase them away, I couldn't be careless. No, I need to find someone to help me. First thought, my mother. No, too old. Pass. Second, my best friend. She is beautiful, but in a different style, and we share the same lofty goals. I should talk to her. I'm sure the right price will break her moral code. Besides, she doesn't have the bellwether surname, so she can't steal my position as the main wife. That bitch, I treat you like a friend, and you treat me like a cash cow. I only get $2 million a month, and I have to give mother $500,000. You dare demand $500,000? You're inflating the market. Price, you say you're still a virgin? Then let my husband try you out for a month, first. Husband is so good he immediately raised my allowance to $5 million. I love you. Damn it, the first baby is a daughter. I must keep trying until I have a son. Finally, thank you for the opening, dear sister. Epilogue, Vivian Johnson. I grew up dependent on my mother. I finally got into college, and things were slowly improving as I approached graduation. Then, my mother fell ill. Mid-stage cancer, the kind of illness the poor cannot afford. I worked part-time jobs during the day for meager wages and spent my evenings encouraging my mother not to lose hope. The immense pressure left me breathless. Faced with the staggering medical bills, I was even prepared to sell myself. But the required medical fees were around $3 million, a price I couldn't even fetch if I tried. Just when I was completely despairing, the hospital informed me that a kind stranger had covered the entire surgical cost and even arranged a proper hospital room. The shock and joy were overwhelming. My mother was saved. I asked the hospital who helped me, but they wouldn't tell me. I knew there was no such thing as a free lunch. I had a premonition that this benefactor would find me one day and demand repayment, but it didn't matter, as long as my mother was alive. I waited and waited for almost 7 years. I remained single during those 7 years. Why? I worried that the benefactor would demand my body, so I avoided dating or marriage, lest I cheat on a future partner when the time came to repay the debt. Finally, I waited until my benefactor arrived. I was surprised to find it was Sincere Clark, a junior from my college days. My junior told me that his mother was seriously ill and likely wouldn't last 2 years. He explained that his wife was having an inappropriate relationship with another man and pleaded with me to bear him a child. I didn't know if his story was true or false, but since I was already prepared to repay the debt, I naturally didn't refuse. The only condition I set was that I be allowed to see the child after birth. When my junior realized I was still a virgin, I saw immense surprise in his eyes. He changed his mind. He told me that he would give me anything except marriage. He wanted me to stay by his side permanently. I didn't argue. I knew that for a wealthy man like him, asking me for demands wasn't a genuine negotiation. Besides, rather than finding a patsy later and living in fear of my secret being exposed, it was better to stay with him. At least I could watch my child grow up. After the child was born, he took me to see his mother one last time. The elderly woman saw the baby and passed away smiling. Then, I attended her funeral as if I were his wife, sending her off on her final journey. My feelings were complicated. Later, he moved me into a large house and hired a nanny for the children. With his permission, I returned to work and saved the money he gave me. I believed he would eventually grow tired of me and cast me aside, and I needed to plan for my children's future and mine. I never expected that 1 year to stretch into a lifetime. It went on so long that I eventually felt like he was truly my husband and I was his wife. During that time, I bore him another son and a daughter. When he turned 60, he handed over the vast business empire to our eldest son. Only then did I truly believe he meant it when he said he loved me.